There's a church story that I know. Maybe you've heard it before, but the way I heard it, the morning started out well. The worship service had gone smoothly. The choir had somehow managed to pronounce all the words in the Buddhist chant. No one snored during the sermon. And the children's story successfully concluded with the recapture of all of the escaped hamsters. All was well. But then came coffee hour. I don't need to explain the importance of a UU coffee hour. Unlike churches and other traditions where coffee is an afterthought, coffee at a UU congregation is offered up as a sacrament. Some theologians have suggested that it is our only sacrament. Anyway, the drama started with the ancient coffee maker, a machine so old it was rumored to have been present at Ralph Waldo Emerson's ordination. Tragically, that was the morning it chose to ascend to the great kitchen in the sky. But it didn't just stop working. It died with a sound that the facilities team would later describe as, quote, a cross between a vacuum cleaner eating a sock and that sound a car makes when it throws a rod. There may or may not have been smoke involved. Witnesses say that what followed was silence. The neighborhood birds stopped singing. The wall clock froze. 150 UUs stopped mid-conversation. In fact, it was just like that moment in nature documentaries when Sir David Attenborough warns you that something enormous is about to eat something else. But before the common room could descend into a live reenactment of The Lord of the Flies, something remarkable happened. Coffee began arriving from everywhere. Nobody had to ask, no committee was formed, no debate needed moderation, no siren screamed, there was no bloodshed of any kind. People just saw a need and met it. The women's circle somehow manifested a pair of French presses. The queer group produced an entire coffee shop's worth of to-go cups, along with a slightly concerning level of knowledge regarding coffee brewing methods. And the group that usually spent coffee hour discussing whether coffee hour was an outdated concept that reinforced hegemonic beverage norms somehow came up with 3 bags of freshly ground beans. Even the Buddhist group, the Buddhist meditation group, offered up their tea, but honestly, nobody was that desperate. Suddenly, the congregation had more coffee than they'd ever had before. Different kinds, different strengths, different temperatures. It was a beautiful diversity of coffee, the board president would later say. The kind of diversity UUs are always talking about, though usually not when talking about hot beverages. The day was saved. I have no idea if this is a true story. But like all good stories, its value lies not in its accuracy, but in what it tells us about the heart of a community. About how people can come together in times of crisis. About how generosity flows naturally when need arises. And how sometimes the most sacred moments happen not in the sanctuary, but in other places, like the social hall, amid the steam of many coffee pots and the clinking of many cups. Personally, I like to think that the great coffee miracle reveals something essentially about who we are at our best. When needs arise, we can respond. Not because someone assigned us the task, not because someone guilted us into it, but because we know this is what it means to be in community. And that brings me to our theme for this pledge season. We are here. This theme wasn't chosen lightly. It speaks to our persistence through challenges, It acknowledges our resilience during extraordinary times. And it points to something too easily overlooked, the value of having a place where we can belong. And that is what we're really providing for each other. Connection in a disconnected world. Meaning in a time that can feel meaningless. Place when the whole world feels like it's tilting. Purpose when we feel adrift. And if that is you, know that it's not just you. It's not just you. Personally, I keep coming back to the 2023 Surgeon General's report on the epidemic of loneliness, and for a reason. That report highlighted a public health crisis that had physical consequences, on par with smoking a pack of cigarettes a day. What we are learning is that human connection isn't a luxury. It's essential infrastructure for well-being. This congregation creates some of that infrastructure. When we gather on Sunday, when we march for justice, when we comfort each other in sorrow or celebrate life's joys, we're building something vital, something that is hard to find out in the world. And maybe that's why so many of you have made the switch. The switch from saying, I go to that church, to that is my church. Your church, your community, your home. But here's where I need to get real with you. The infrastructure of connection requires actual infrastructure too. This building, our staff, our programs, and like many institutions, we have financial challenges to overcome if we want to keep building on that infrastructure. I need to be clear about something that might not be obvious to everyone, especially to those newer to our congregation. The grave and disappointing truth is this: unlike many denominations, Unitarian Universalist congregations receive no funding from on high. Not from the denomination, not from any outside organization. Our Unitarian Universalist Association is something that the individual congregations support, not the other way around. Even worse, we have yet to find our own secret billionaire or mysterious conglomerate, or even a non-government grant, right, that can cover all or some of our operating expenses. And while we would very definitely like to build one, we do not currently have an endowment large enough to offset rising costs. Instead, this community exists solely because of the financial commitments made by the people joining us, either online or sitting in the pews, by you. And that means that every light that brightens our gatherings, every note of music that lifts our spirits, every cup of coffee, every order of service, every class for children and adults, every staff member who supports our work, all of it happens only because of your financial support. I have to confess, right? Talking about this is really weird for me. You pay my salary. You pay the salary of Christine, our office director, Cynthia, our music director, Becky, our RE director, and Lisa, our ministries admin. Which means that I am in the extremely awkward position this morning of singing for our collective supper. But I'm doing this not because I think you need to hear it, but instead because this is the information that is part of what it means to be a member. Mystery, yes. But also mechanics. That's what ownership means. Your church. Now, as some of you know, this church used to have 2 services on Sunday mornings. Looking around the room and looking for more elbow room, you're probably saying to yourself, 2 services makes a lot of sense. What those of you online may not see this morning is that while our sanctuary is lovely, it is not particularly capacious. Now, about 10 years ago, this lovely suburban church saw some changes. Our assistant minister left. The senior minister retired. A completely unrelated global pandemic followed. And that changed a lot of things for a lot of us. That was then. The good news today is that we're growing. New members means new life. And that's why we will likely be moving back to 2 services this fall. I'm so sorry, Cynthia. But that means we will have some decisions to make, and those decisions depend on funding. Our biggest challenge right now is our deficit. Our finance team has done an incredible job of managing our money, and that means that we have been successfully able to close that deficit each year by pulling money from our savings. But as you know, this is not and cannot be a forever solution. We need firmer footing. Our donations come to us in a variety of ways. Every week, many of you generously fill the baskets that we pass. Some of you mail in checks when you can, and we are so grateful for that. Others of you, because you have the blessed capacity to do so, donate through an annual disbursement from your lifetime savings. All of that is vital and awesome. But the vast majority of the money we take in comes from promises made during our annual pledge drive. That's the money that we budget with. So with some apologies for my bluntness, let's take a look at that. If you take all of the donations we've received in the last year and laid them out on a grid, half the pledges we receive fall below the $1,000 mark. That's the mathematical median. If you take all the pledges we received and added them up and then divided that by the number of donations, the average donation is $2,500. That's the mean. What I'm asking this morning is your help to bring the median closer to the mean. This is one of 3 ways that we can close our budget gap. An alternative is that we ask everyone who can raise their pledge by 15%. That would also close the gap. Another alternative is that we fund our brand new endowment to such a level that the annual withdrawal is enough to cover us. That would get us home too. 3 paths, separately or much more likely in some combination, all of them pointed at our future. To be honest, I'm encouraged by this. We have options. Many of our sister congregations across the country do not. This ends the math portion of this morning. Pledge season starts next week, and during that time, you're going to be invited to join your friends, old and new, for a pledge party. A good time will be had by all, and yes, spoiler alert, someone will ask you to make a pledge of financial support. If you've made a pledge in the past, chances are very good that you will be asked to increase this next pledge. I just want to get that out of the way. But even knowing that, my hope is that you'll still choose to go. My hope is that you'll have some fun. My hope is that you'll celebrate the spirit that is motivating these party hosts. They care deeply about this place and the community finding a home here. My hope is that you will join them in expressing your care too. A wise person once said to me that you can never know the financial situation of another person unless you are sitting in front of their books. That's true. And the fact is, no one knows your situation. I want to honor and respect that situation. Everyone here knows that you must make decisions that are right for you. But in that calculus, my hope is that UUSG can be among those causes you find worthy of your time, your talents, and yes, your treasure. My friends, look around. No, really, look around. So if you see what I see, you see some new faces. You see new families. You see new energy flowing through our sanctuary every Sunday morning. We are in the middle of a revitalization that we only imagined 5 years ago. Our congregation today is stronger, more interesting, and more engaged than it was back then. This renewal is precisely why addressing our financial foundation matters so deeply. As is true in our nation at large, we here are also at a pivotal moment. And that's why I'm up here today asking for your vote for revitalization so that we can build on our momentum. I believe in this community. I believe in what we can create together. I believe that what matters happens here, that what happens here matters. Not just to us, but to a world that desperately needs communities like ours, communities of principle and purpose. Think back to what brought you here that first time, whenever that was. Perhaps you were seeking answers to life's big questions. Maybe you were looking for friends on your spiritual journey. Maybe you wanted your children to grow up with values of compassion and justice. Maybe you were drawn to the music, the intellectual spirit, the commitment to social change. Whatever it is that brought you here, you stayed because you found something precious, a community that welcomes you as you are, while loving you into what you might yet become. This is worth sustaining. This is worth growing. This is worth investing in. And that brings me back to our theme. In a world where so many communities are fragmenting, where so many institutions are struggling, we are here. After years of pandemic and isolation, we are here. After political division and dismay tearing at the fabric of our society, we are here. After struggles within our own community, we're here. After personal losses, collective grief, we are still here. We are here for each other to create and strengthen the bonds of connections that strengthen and sustain us through life's sorrows and amplify life's joys. We are here for our children, teaching them not what to think, but how to think, with both critical minds and compassionate hearts. We are here for our neighbors, partnering with local life-giving organizations, showing up at rallies and vigils, being a visible presence for reason, truth, tolerance, justice, and compassion. We are here for a world in need, adding our voices to the growing chorus, calling out for environmental responsibility, for social justice, for a more equitable society. We are here for those who have not found us yet, keeping our doors and hearts open to seekers and doubters alike, to the wounded and the wondering. In times of uncertainty, we are the community that grounds us. In times of injustice, we are the community that moves us to action. In times of sorrow, we are the community that holds us in care. In times of joy, we are the community that celebrates in love. Like those ancestors in the great coffee legend, we each bring what we can. Some bring financial resources. Some bring time and talent. Some bring wisdom earned through life experience. Some bring questions that challenge us to grow. Some bring musical gifts that lift all of our spirits. Some bring organizational skills that keep us on the path of the right and the good. Some bring vision that call us onward and upward, always toward our highest ideals. When we each bring what we can, we create abundance. We create possibility. We create beloved community. This year, as we all consider our pledges, let us remember what we are building together. Let us remember what brought us here and what keeps us coming back. Let us remember those who loved this church before us and those who will inherit what we get to create. We don't all have the same resources, but we do all have the same stake in this community's future. Whatever your pledge, know that it is important precisely because it is the manifestation of your commitment to our shared values and vision. Because we are here. We are here. And with your support, we will be here, creating connection in a disconnected world. We will be here, tending the flame of love and justice. We will be here, building the beloved community, one friendship at a time. Together is how we prove that love is stronger than fear. Together is how we demonstrate that diversity creates strength. Together is how we show that generosity creates abundance. Together we are here, and together we will remain. Amen.
Visit us at uusg.org.